Your mind is powerful, so powerful it can build a life you love, or a prison you never escape. Most of the pain you feel doesn't come from reality, it comes from the stories your mind creates about reality. Overthinking takes the smallest concern and turns it into a disaster. It magnifies fear, invents problems, and convinces you the worst is always coming. The truth is, most of the things you worry about will never happen, but your body reacts as if they already did. That's the trap you keep fighting, battles that exist only in your imagination. The mind wants to protect you, but in trying to protect you, it keeps you scared, stuck, and stressed. This audiobook will help you understand your mind's illusions, the false warnings, the exaggerated fears, the invented dangers. It will teach you how to stop believing every thought and start observing them instead. Because even the smartest mind can become your enemy if you don't learn how to control it. Once you realize that the majority of your problems exist only in your thinking, you stop suffering twice, once in reality and once in your mind. This is where peace begins. This is where freedom starts. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Problems. Most of the conflicts you experience don't exist anywhere except inside your mind. You think you're fighting situations, people, and circumstances, but really, you're battling your own imagined outcomes. The brain is a storyteller, and when it becomes afraid, it starts creating stories that feel real even when they hold no truth. You begin to argue with scenarios that never happened. You suffer from events that only exist in your imagination. Your mind loves to exaggerate danger. It takes a simple message, a delayed reply, a single mistake, and turns it into a worst-case scenario. You begin to believe something is wrong, even when nothing has changed. You overthink a moment that was already over. What could have been a calm day becomes a mental storm created by a fear that never needed to exist. When you overanalyze life, your mind becomes a factory of false alarms. Fear becomes your default setting. You assume the worst because the mind thinks protection means predicting every threat. But real protection doesn't come from worrying, it comes from clarity. Most situations are neutral until your thoughts define them. You are not reacting to reality, you are reacting to your interpretation of it. Your brain is trying to keep you safe, but its method is outdated. It evolved to identify survival threats, predators, physical danger, the wild unknown. Today, it sees discomfort as danger and uncertainty as a threat. The mind cannot tell the difference between a lion and a conversation, between a crisis and a possibility. So it warns you, loudly, even when nothing is actually wrong. Many of the problems that consume your energy never turn into anything real. You spend hours preparing for outcomes that will never happen. You rehearse pain that you will never feel. You give weight to small things until they crush you. Your anxiety becomes a storyteller, and the more you listen to it, the more powerful it becomes. The illusion of problems steals your present moment. You are physically here, but mentally everywhere else, worrying about tomorrow, replaying yesterday. You miss opportunities because you're too lost in predictions. You lose joy because your mind is busy calculating risk. You forget to live because your mind is too busy surviving. Imagine how different life would feel if you only focused on what is actually happening, not what your mind says might happen. Problems would shrink instantly. The silence inside you would grow. Stress would drop. Clarity would rise. Your mind would become a companion instead of a threat. Most suffering disappears the moment you stop feeding fear with imagination. When a problem is real, you can deal with it. You take action, find a solution, move forward. But when a problem exists only in your mind, there is nothing to solve, only something to let go. Overthinking tries to fix what isn't broken. It demands answers to questions that don't exist. It keeps you stuck in a loop where nothing changes except your stress levels. You fear uncertainty because your mind loves control. It wants guarantees before movement, proof before trust. But life doesn't unfold with certainty. Life rewards motion, not prediction. When you require absolute safety, you imprison yourself in hesitation. The illusion of problems becomes the prison walls you build from worry. Your thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky, some heavy, some dark, some light, but none of them are the sky itself. The sky is who you truly are, a peaceful awareness beneath the noise. You are not the storm, you are the space that holds the storm. And the moment you recognize this, the illusion loses its power. You don't need to eliminate every fear, you just need to stop believing every fear. You don't need to force your mind to be silent, you just need to stop feeding the thoughts that scare you. When you make peace with not knowing, the mind has less to protect you from. When the mind relaxes, your life expands. The mind creates illusions because it is trying to predict pain. But pain is a teacher, not an enemy. The fear of pain is worse than pain itself. You've survived every struggle you thought would break you. Most of your imagined disasters never became reality, yet you lived them as if they did. This is how the illusion controls you. You cannot stop thoughts from appearing, but you can stop worshipping them. They are suggestions, not instructions. They are possibilities, not prophecies. When you observe your mind instead of obeying it, you take back your power. Clarity returns. Awareness strengthens. Fear fades into background noise. The illusion of problems is fueled by attention. Whatever you focus on magnifies. If you focus on fear, fear grows. If you focus on solutions, solutions appear. You can't feel peace while feeding chaos. You can't feel free while nurturing doubt. Your life will always follow the direction of your strongest thoughts. Notice how quickly problems disappear when you stop talking about them. Stop replaying them. Stop giving them emotional importance. Most issues are temporary. You extend them by repeatedly revisiting them. What you resist persists. What you allow passes. The mind is a storyteller, but you are the author who decides which story becomes real. You can question a thought instead of accepting it. You can choose curiosity instead of fear. You can ask, is this thought true or just loud? Loud thoughts are not always accurate thoughts. Fearful thoughts are not always wise thoughts. Your inner peace will not come from fixing life. It will come from fixing the way you interpret life. The moment you realize most problems exist only in your head, you start living from truth instead of illusion. Every fear loses its teeth. Every worry becomes a whisper. Every challenge becomes manageable. Life becomes easier when you stop fighting imaginary battles. You regain energy that was wasted on scenarios that never came true. You start responding to reality instead of reacting to stories. You feel lighter, freer. Not because life changed, but because your mind did. You deserve peace. Not the temporary peace that comes when everything is perfect, but the real peace that comes when your mind stops lying to you. When you stop assuming danger, stop predicting disaster, stop preparing for worst-case scenarios that rarely happen. Peace is not outside you. It grows when the illusion fades. Your mind will always produce thoughts, that is its nature. But you don't have to turn every thought into a problem. You can choose which thoughts to believe. You can choose which thoughts to release. The illusion ends where awareness begins. And awareness is the first step toward freedom. Reality is rarely the enemy. The mind often is. But once you learn to see through the illusion of problems, you take your power back from the stories that were never meant to define you. You begin to live again not in fear, not in imaginary danger, but in truth, possibility, and peace. Chapter 2. How overthinking creates pain that doesn't exist. Overthinking is the art of suffering before anything has actually happened. Your mind takes a neutral moment and stretches it into endless possibilities, most of them negative. It convinces you that danger is near, that judgment is coming, that failure is unavoidable. You begin to feel fear and anxiety over events that have never occurred. The pain becomes real even though the threat never was. When you replay problems in your mind, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It triggers stress responses as if you are living the worst-case scenario right now. Your heart races, your breathing changes, your body tense up, all because your thoughts told your brain a story that isn't true. You're not being hurt by life, you're being hurt by the fears it never gave you. The mind believes it's protecting you by preparing for every outcome, but preparation turns into paralysis when fear controls the thinking. You analyze every step so much that you stop moving altogether. Overthinking becomes a cage where you lock yourself inside the illusion of control. Instead of living, you wait. Instead of acting, you worry. Instead of progressing, you drown in hesitation. Pain from overthinking is not physical. It's emotional and psychological torture. It's the ache of what if, the sting of imagined rejection, the anxiety of future judgment. You carry burdens that don't belong to you. You fight enemies that only exist in your mind. You bleed for wounds that never touched you. The mind becomes both the attacker and the victim. Overthinking magnifies small issues until they feel like disasters. A simple comment becomes an insult. A delay becomes abandonment. A mistake becomes failure. You forget that context exists and assume everything is personal. You interpret silence as rejection instead of neutrality. The mind thrives on assumptions because assumptions give it something to fear. Negative thoughts create emotional reactions. First, logic comes later. The body responds faster than the truth arrives. You cry over scenarios your mind fabricated. You panic about consequences that were never coming. The emotional pain feels so intense that you forget it wasn't triggered by reality. Your mind becomes the enemy you cannot outrun. Overthinking keeps you stuck in the past and afraid of the future. You replay harmful memories, relive regrets, and reopen scars that were already healing. You project those memories into tomorrow, assuming that what hurt you once will hurt you again. You treat the future like a mirror of your mistakes, not a canvas for new possibilities. The biggest tragedy is that overthinking doesn't prevent pain, it creates it. You try to avoid disappointment, but end up disappointed daily. You try to avoid embarrassment, but feel anxious constantly. You try to avoid mistakes, but never take the actions that lead to growth. The pain you fear becomes the pain you live. Your mind becomes cluttered with questions that have no answers. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if everything goes wrong? But here's a better question. What if everything goes right? Overthinking always assumes the negative, and in doing so, blocks the positive from entering your life. Overthinking doesn't give you clarity, it takes clarity away. The more you think, the more confused you become. The more scenarios you create, the less you trust your decisions. You become emotionally exhausted before taking even the first step. Every decision feels heavy, every risk feels deadly, every choice feels final. The mind loves certainty. It wants to know the outcome before making the move. But certainty doesn't exist in life. Every path involves unknowns. When you demand guarantees, you deny yourself opportunities. You remain stuck in the question because you refuse to experience the answer. Overthinking becomes the reason life passes you by. You must understand. Thoughts are not facts. They are mental noise, sometimes helpful, often harmful. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear deserves your belief. The mind can reflect reality, but more often, it distorts it. Peace begins when you stop treating your thoughts like absolute truth. The emotional pain of overthinking is amplified by repetition. The more you entertain a thought, the more believable it becomes. A lie repeated in your mind enough times becomes a truth you live by. The mind becomes a hypnotist, and fear becomes the trance. You act based on illusions you created yourself. Overthinking turns life into a constant performance review. You judge your personality, your words, your actions, your existence. Every moment becomes a test you think you're failing. You live as if you are always being watched, even when no one is paying attention. That pressure crushes your joy, steals your peace, and suffocates your authenticity. Overthinking separates you from reality. You stop experiencing life firsthand. Instead, you experience your thoughts about life. You don't feel the moment you analyze it. You don't listen, you predict. You don't respond, you worry. You don't live, you observe yourself living. That distance disconnects you from the beauty happening right now. Fear becomes a habit when you practice it every day. Your brain becomes wired to expect danger. It becomes addicted to overthinking because fear keeps it busy. The mind believes stress equals survival, even when there is nothing to survive. To break the habit, you must teach your brain that peace is also safe. Overthinking steals the joy of good moments. You can't celebrate success because you're already doubting the next step. You can't accept love because you're afraid it will leave. You can't enjoy progress because you fear regression. You ruin blessings by expecting loss. You sabotage peace by expecting chaos. You are stronger than the illusions your mind creates. You've overcome real struggles, yet you fear imaginary ones. You've survived actual pain, yet you suffer most from pain that doesn't exist. When you remind yourself of everything you've already handled, you realize you are more powerful than fear would ever admit. The way out of overthinking is not by thinking less, but by thinking differently. Instead of assuming danger, assume possibility. Instead of predicting failure, predict growth. Instead of reliving fears, remember victories. A mind that creates fear can also create courage if you direct it intentionally. The moment you stop overthinking, you stop suffering unnecessarily. You begin to feel the present moment instead of fearing the future. You gain emotional freedom not by controlling life, but by controlling your response to life. Problems shrink, peace grows, and clarity returns. Because the pain that never existed finally loses its power over you. Chapter 3. Your thoughts are not always telling the truth. Your mind is a storyteller, and not every story it tells is real. It creates assumptions when information is missing, warns you of dangers that don't exist, and convinces you that fear is wisdom. Thoughts can feel like truth because they come from inside you. But feelings and facts are not the same thing. A convincing lie inside your mind can blind you to what's actually happening around you. Many of your thoughts are just interpretations shaped by past pain. If someone once hurt you, your mind begins assuming everyone will. If you once failed, your mind begins expecting failure everywhere. The brain builds patterns from memory, not always reality. It repeats yesterday's fears, even when today is different. You start reacting to old wounds, not current situations. Your thoughts reflect your emotional state more than the world itself. On a good day, the world looks full of possibility. On a bad day, the same world looks threatening. The circumstances didn't change, only your perception did. The mind uses mood as evidence, even when mood is just temporary. That's why a negative thought feels so convincing, not because it's true, but because it matches how you feel. Your brain prefers fear because fear feels safe. Negative thinking acts like a shield. It prepares you for the worst so you don't get hurt. But instead of protecting you, it traps you. You start expecting disappointment before life even has the chance to show you something good. The brain would rather be painfully pessimistic than riskfully hopeful. But safety without growth is just a slower kind of pain. You treat your thoughts like commands because you assume the mind always knows best. But the mind is biased, emotional, reactive, and easily influenced. It exaggerates what scares you and ignores what strengthens you. You begin to trust fear more than logic, stress more than truth. The brain's loudest voice is not always its wisest voice. A thought repeated enough times becomes a belief, and a belief lived long enough becomes your identity. You may believe you are not smart enough, not worthy enough, not strong enough, not because it's true, but because your mind said it so often that you stopped questioning it. The brain can train you to think small without you even noticing. Your thoughts often show you the worst-case scenario disguised as realism. You picture yourself failing, being rejected, losing everything, and then you call it being prepared. But preparation is useless when it paralyzes you. Fearful thoughts claim to protect you from danger, but they mostly protect you from growth. They keep you from experiences you are absolutely capable of handling. When you over-identify with thoughts, you lose your perspective. You think every fear must be answered, every doubt must be solved, every insecurity must be fixed. But thoughts are not demands, they are suggestions. You don't have to believe every idea that appears in your mind. Some thoughts deserve to fade without a single second of attention. One false thought can shape your entire life. I'm not enough. That single belief leads to smaller goals, weaker actions, and unnecessary fear. You stop trying because you already assume failure. You accept less because you assume you don't deserve more. The greatest damage a thought can do is convince you to abandon your own potential. Your thoughts are influenced by the people who shaped you: parents, friends, teachers, society. If they doubted you, you learned to doubt yourself. If they criticized you, you learned to criticize yourself. Your mind adopted voices that were never yours. You carry beliefs that came from others who didn't see your worth, and you repeat them as if they were facts. The mind loves creating problems in the absence of real ones. When life is calm, your brain hunts for possible danger. It needs something to solve, something to fear, something to analyze. Peace feels unfamiliar, so it invents chaos. Instead of enjoying quiet moments, the mind fills them with imaginary storms. You think thousands of thoughts every day, but how many are actually useful? Most thoughts are noise, random, repetitive, meaningless. Yet the mind will convince you they're important just to keep your attention. The louder the thought, the more urgent it feels, even if it's a lie. That's how worry becomes a habit, not a necessity. You don't choose your first thought, but you can choose your second. The mind may react automatically based on fear or trauma, but you can decide whether to continue believing that reaction. Freedom begins when you stop letting your initial thoughts control your final decisions. The power is not in what you think, it's in what you choose to do with what you think. Thoughts feel real because they generate real emotions. A lie inside your mind can make your heart race and your palms sweat. Anxiety doesn't come from what's happening, it comes from what you imagine might happen. And the body suffers for events that never take place. Emotional pain becomes the consequence of mental fiction. Sometimes your thoughts aren't even yours, they're echoes of past pain. Someone told you that you weren't good enough, and now your mind repeats it as if it's your own opinion. Someone made you feel unlovable, and now your thoughts argue that love will always leave. The brain memorizes pain faster than joy and plays it back without permission. Your thoughts can trap you in cycles of regret about the past or fear about the future. Meanwhile, the present, the only place you can act, grow, and change, is wasted. The mind distracts you with what you can't control, so you never focus on what you can. You start living everywhere, except the moment you're actually in. When thoughts go unchallenged, they become assumptions, and assumptions become the structure of your life. You stop asking if something is true because you've already accepted it as truth. But beliefs are not facts, they are conclusions you trained yourself to adopt. What you believe today might be nothing more than what fear told you yesterday. Your mind uses imagination to create fear, but that same imagination can also create courage. If you can visualize everything going wrong, you can also visualize everything going right. If your mind can build a nightmare, it can build a dream. Thoughts become powerful only when you direct them intentionally, instead of letting them wander aimlessly. Thinking too much does not mean thinking well. You can spend hours in mental chaos and still learn nothing. A clear mind is not the one with the most thoughts. It is the one with the most awareness. Wisdom isn't loud, it's calm. Truth isn't anxious, it's simple. The more you observe your thoughts instead of reacting to them, the more clarity rises above the noise. Not every thought deserves to be solved. Some thoughts need to be ignored. The brain throws thousands of ideas at you, and most of them are irrelevant. You must learn to let them pass without grabbing one and turning it into a disaster. Peace is choosing which thoughts deserve a place in your attention. Your thoughts can build confidence or destroy it. A single encouraging belief can change your actions. A single discouraging belief can stop them entirely. The mind has the power to either open doors or lock them. You must decide which voice becomes the authority, the voice of doubt or the voice of possibility. When you believe negative thoughts, you limit your life based on fears instead of truth. You decline opportunities you could handle. You avoid people who might care. You reject success before it has the chance to arrive. The only real power those thoughts have is the power you give them through belief. Your mind can predict fear with accuracy, but it often misjudges your strength. It tells you that you are too weak to continue, too broken to heal, too late to start, but your strength is proven every time you've survived what was once unimaginable. If your thoughts underestimate you, then they are not speaking truth, they are speaking fear. The mind projects past pain into future moments, expecting repetition. But the future isn't obligated to follow the past. Growth means your next experience can be completely different from the last one. Fear recycles old stories, courage writes new ones. You don't live in yesterday anymore. Your thoughts need to stop pretending you do. You must become the witness of your mind, not the prisoner of it. When a thought says, "You can't," you step back and ask, "Is that true, or is that fear?" When a thought says, "You will fail," you ask, "What evidence do you have?" Questioning thoughts weakens them. Truth survives, questioning fear does not. When you stop believing every thought, anxiety loses its grip. You stop reacting to imagined threats. You stop shrinking from possibilities. You stop treating fear as proof. Your mind becomes quieter because it knows you won't listen to lies anymore. You take back the authority the mind was never meant to have. The moment you understand that thoughts are just thoughts, not destiny, you become free. You realize that fear doesn't know the future. Doubt doesn't define your ability. Insecurity doesn't reflect your worth. You stop asking, "What if I'm not enough?" and start deciding, "What if I am?" And that shift can change your entire life. Your thoughts aren't always telling the truth, but your actions can lead you to it. When you live based on curiosity instead of fear, you discover that the world is far kinder than your mind imagined. You find that most problems disappear when you stop thinking about them and start living your way through them. Truth is found in experience, not anxiety. Chapter 4. Break the habit of mental story making. Your mind hates uncertainty, so it fills the gaps with stories. When someone doesn't reply, your brain imagines they're angry. When plans change, your brain assumes the worst. Instead of waiting for reality, your thoughts rush to create a narrative. The problem is, these stories are rarely kind. They are shaped by fear, insecurity, and past pain. You end up reacting to assumptions instead of truth. Mental story-making feels like intuition, but it's usually imagination fueled by anxiety. Your brain tries to predict outcomes so you feel prepared, but instead of preparing, it scares you. You begin to respond emotionally to events that haven't even happened. You fight battles in your mind that don't exist in real life, wasting energy on what isn't real. When you create stories in your mind, your body reacts as if they're happening. Your heart beats faster, your stomach tightens, stress rises, all from a fear that lives only in thought. The mind can trigger survival mode without any real danger. And the more your body reacts, the more convincing the lie feels. Your brain is wired to focus on threats. So, when it imagines a situation, it exaggerates risks and downplays possibilities. You might think someone is judging you when they aren't even thinking about you. You might assume failure before you've even tried. You might believe a relationship is falling apart just because of a small misunderstanding. Most stories the mind creates are built on fear, not facts. Mental stories become habits when you replay them again and again. The more you repeat a narrative, the more familiar and believable it becomes. Suddenly, your fears feel like facts, and your assumptions feel like proof. The mind becomes addicted to drama because drama feels urgent, it demands attention. Peace, however, feels unfamiliar and therefore suspicious. You may call it being cautious, but often it's self-sabotage. Overthinking invents problems and then forces you to solve them. You push people away to avoid imagined rejection. You avoid opportunities because you assume you'll fail. You walk away from happiness before you even know if it's real. Mental story-making creates a future filled with fears borrowed from the past. The mind uses fragments of information to create a full story. One look, one word, one silence. Instead of asking questions, the mind jumps to conclusions. They don't care. I'm not important. I'm going to lose. These thoughts feel protective, but they actually hurt you more than the truth ever would. Reality might be neutral. The mind makes it painful. Fear loves fiction because fiction can be shaped into anything terrifying. A late reply turns into abandonment. A challenge becomes a disaster. A change becomes failure. You start living inside a horror movie that never actually happens. And the tragedy is you miss real life while trying to survive a fake one. Your mind cannot stand the unknown. If it doesn't have answers, it creates them. But real wisdom is the ability to let life be unfinished without rushing to negative conclusions, to allow blank spaces without filling them with fear. The unknown is not danger, it's possibility. Story-making replaces possibility with panic. Children imagine monsters under the bed. Adults imagine them in emails, silence, relationships, and futures. The monster changes shape, but the fear remains the same, fear without evidence. The mind tries to protect the heart, but in doing so, it restricts it. You live carefully, but never fully. The stories your mind creates are often the opposite of what is true. Someone might be silent because they're overwhelmed, not because they don't care. A challenge might be an opportunity, not a threat. A delay might be protection, not rejection. The mind doesn't wait for clarity. It assumes negativity because negativity feels safer than disappointment. When you live in mental stories, you mistake thoughts for intuition. True intuition is calm and clear. Fear-based stories are loud and urgent. Intuition guides, fear pushes. Intuition comes from experience. Fear comes from insecurity. Learning to tell the difference is the beginning of wisdom. Mental story-making becomes suffering when you start living in imagination instead of reality. You react emotionally to events that haven't happened. You apologize for problems that don't exist. You fear outcomes that will never come true. The mind pulls you into a fictional world and convinces you that it's your destiny. Every time you overthink, you give your imagination more power than your actions. And imagination is limitless. It can create infinite problems. Reality, however, is limited. It only contains what truly exists. Peace comes when you choose to engage with the real instead of the imaginary. The brain loves patterns, so it copies old stories into new moments. If someone once left you, every silence becomes abandonment. If someone once betrayed you, every closeness becomes danger. You end up punishing today for what yesterday did. You deserve better than a future controlled by ghosts. An untrained mind searches for meaning in everything. A look becomes judgment, a sigh becomes anger, a delay becomes rejection. Not everything is about you, and that truth is liberating. People have lives beyond your assumptions. Your peace grows when you stop taking every small detail as a sign of doom. You cannot control what thoughts appear, but you can control which ones you nourish. A thought without attention dies quickly. A thought fed with fear becomes a story. A story repeated becomes a belief. And a belief lived becomes your life. Choose carefully which stories become your reality. The habit of story-making fades when you focus on facts. What did they actually say? What truly happened? What evidence do you have? Facts are boring but reliable. Fear is exciting but fake. Peace lives in the truth, even when the truth is incomplete. You break the cycle when you learn to pause. A thought appears, you notice it, but you don't chase it. You don't let your imagination finish the story before life does. You give reality space to show you what's actually happening. Most fears lose their power in silence. When you stay present, your imagination loses control. Right now, in this exact moment, you are safe. Right now, there is nothing attacking you. The mind wants to drag you into yesterday or tomorrow, but peace only exists here in the simplicity of now. You don't have to respond to every thought with emotion. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Let them pass like clouds, instead of building homes in them. The less you react, the weaker they become. The mind learns not to bother you with lies when it knows you're not listening. Your brain has been trained to overreact, but it can also be trained to calm down. Challenge your assumptions. Recognize when fear is inventing a story. Practice asking, what else could this mean? The moment you introduce a positive possibility, fear loses its monopoly on interpretation. When you allow life to unfold without forcing a narrative, you discover something powerful. Reality is rarely as bad as your mind predicted. The fear inside you is louder than the truth around you. The more you experience life directly, the more you realize how many problems never actually become real. Mental story-making steals joy before joy has the chance to arrive. You expect disappointment and miss the gifts. You assume rejection and push love away. You predict failure and stop yourself from winning. The mind convinces you that pain is guaranteed, so you avoid happiness just to be safe. Every assumption is a wall that blocks connection and growth. You stop asking questions because you think you already know the answer. But assumptions are often just fear pretending to be knowledge. True strength is curiosity, allowing yourself to explore possibilities instead of fearing them. The brain wants to finish the story quickly, but life is slow and unfolding. If you rush to conclusions, you will always arrive at the wrong place. Patience creates accuracy. Silence creates clarity. Space creates truth. Let life speak before your mind does. Your mind is powerful, but it is not perfect. It sees through lenses you didn't choose, past trauma, insecurity, fatigue. When the lens is dirty, the picture looks broken. But the picture is fine, it's the lens you must clean. Shift perception and the story changes. You are not responsible for your first thought, but you are responsible for the narrative you build afterward. A fearful thought is not your failure. Believing it without questioning is what keeps you stuck. Strength is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear write the script. Every time you step into reality, instead of assumptions, you weaken the habit of mental storytelling. You learn that silence is not rejection, uncertainty is not danger, and change is not catastrophe. Reality becomes less frightening when your mind stops exaggerating it. You cannot stop thoughts from appearing, but you can stop them from controlling your life. Treat them like background noise there, but irrelevant. The mind loses its power when you stop treating every thought like prophecy. The truth is simple. Your mind is dramatic. It loves stories more than facts. But you don't have to entertain every drama it creates. You can choose the quiet truth over the loud lie. You can choose peace over panic. You can choose presence over imagination. Breaking the habit doesn't mean you stop thinking. It means you stop believing everything you think. Doubt the doubts. Question the fears. Challenge the assumptions. The less you let the mind deceive you, the more the world reveals its real beauty. When you learn to separate thoughts from truth, you stop living inside mental fiction. You stop reacting to shadows. You stop losing sleep over imaginary problems. You finally give reality a chance to show you something different, something better than the story fear wanted you to believe. And that is where freedom begins, not in controlling the mind, but in refusing to let the mind control you. When you stop finishing fear's stories and start waiting for facts, life becomes clearer, calmer, and infinitely more peaceful. Chapter 5. Live in the moment, not in your mind. You spend more time inside your head than inside your life. While the present moment is happening right in front of you, your mind drags you into a past you can't change or a future you can't predict. The body lives here, but the mind wanders everywhere else, and that is why peace becomes impossible. The present is gentle, but your thoughts are loud. Right now is the only place life actually exists, but the mind convinces you that right now isn't enough. It pulls you into what should be, what could go wrong, what others think. Instead of experiencing life directly, you experience the mental version of it filtered through fear, doubt, and assumptions. The moment becomes invisible. The present moment is simple. The mind makes it complicated. Right here, nothing is attacking you. Nothing is failing. Nothing is falling apart. You are breathing. You are safe. But the moment your mind leaves this reality, you step into a world that doesn't exist, a stressful movie created by imagination. Most suffering comes from thinking too far ahead or looking too far behind. The future creates anxiety because it's uncertain. The past creates regret because it's unchangeable. The present is the only moment with potential, yet it is the one we ignore the most. You can't move forward if you're mentally stuck somewhere else. Awareness is the doorway to presence. When you pay attention to the smallest details, the feeling of your breath, the texture of your environment, the sounds around you, your mind becomes grounded. Presence doesn't happen automatically. It is a conscious shift from thinking to noticing. Your mind thinks fear will prepare you for life, but it only steals you from life. Worry doesn't prevent tomorrow's problems. It only empties today's peace. You cannot live twice, once in your imagination and once in reality. You must choose one. Choose now. Your mind tells you to hurry, to fix everything at once, to chase outcomes. But life isn't a race. The more you chase, the more everything runs away. When you slow down and become present, clarity returns. Decisions become easier because they are guided by truth, not panic. Peace doesn't come from solving every problem. It comes from stepping out of the mental storm. When you stop assuming and start noticing, you find peace hiding in plain sight, in the silence between thoughts, in the pause before reaction, in the breath you always forget to appreciate. Presence allows life to surprise you. Overthinking kills the surprise. You cannot notice joy if you're busy preparing for pain. You cannot experience connection if your mind is rehearsing conversations. Life gives gifts to those who are here really, here not lost inside mental noise. Living in your mind creates emotional illusions. A person becomes a threat because of one look. A day becomes ruined because of one mistake. A dream becomes impossible because of one doubt. Presence brings accuracy. It reminds you that most fears are exaggerations, not facts. Right now, look around. Is everything okay in this exact second? If yes, then your suffering is not coming from the moment, it is coming from memory or imagination. And that means peace is already available. You just left it behind in the present. When you rush, you miss life's subtle beauty, the kind that heals the mind without trying. A breeze on your skin, the warmth of sunlight, a genuine smile. These are the moments that remind you everything is actually fine. But you can't receive them if your mind is somewhere else. Every moment you spend inside your head is a moment you lose from your actual life. You don't feel sunsets because you photograph them. You don't enjoy the meal because you're scrolling through your phone. You don't hear the compliment because you're replaying an old insult. You miss what's real while stressing about what isn't. The mind makes life feel heavier than it is. The present moment is light, always light, unless the mind adds weight to it. When you strip away the stories, what remains is simple. This breath, this step, this heartbeat. Nothing to fear here, nothing to prove here. Presence is power because it keeps your attention aligned with your actions. When you live mentally somewhere else, your behavior becomes sloppy, reactive, unfocused. You can't build a powerful life while living in imaginary battles. Strength is built in the moment you're actually living. The future is shaped by what you do right now, not by what you worry about tomorrow. Planning is useful, but planning becomes harmful when it replaces action. You don't need to control the entire journey. Just handle the step that's in front of you. The step is always here, not there. Life becomes beautiful when you stop analyzing it and start experiencing it. The mind tries to explain everything, but explanations are not required for joy. You don't need a reason to laugh, to rest, to feel grateful. Presence doesn't ask for stories. It invites you to simply be. Living in the moment doesn't mean ignoring responsibility. It means refusing to be dragged by fear into a future that hasn't happened. You can prepare without panicking. You can remember without regretting. You can move forward without running mentally ahead. Presence turns ordinary moments into miracles. Drinking water becomes refreshing. Walking becomes meditation. Silence becomes healing. You start to see life clearly, without the mind twisting it into drama. The present moment becomes enough, more than enough. When you are present, you stop comparing. Comparison only exists in the mind, never in the moment. When you are here, you don't feel behind. You don't feel inadequate. You feel alive. And being alive is already success. The present is the only time you can act. You can't do anything in tomorrow. You can only think about tomorrow. You can't change yesterday. You can only relive it. Every real decision, every real change, every real victory happens now. Action lives here. Your mind will try to pull you back to its comfort zone, replaying stories it knows well. But comfort is not always peace. Sometimes comfort is self-imprisonment. Breaking free means choosing reality over repetition, choosing presence over panic. When you worry less about how things should be, you can finally enjoy how they are. Life doesn't need to be perfect to be worth living. It just needs to be experienced. The moment you stop judging the moment becomes beautiful. Presence teaches you patience. Instead of forcing answers, you allow life to unfold. Instead of rushing the process, you trust the timing. You realize that clarity comes when it's ready, not when anxiety demands it. Living in the moment is not about forgetting the past. It's about not living in it. It's not about ignoring the future. It's about not fearing it. It's about honoring the deepest truth. The only moment you have power over is the one happening right now. When you return to the present, you return to yourself. Your heartbeat becomes your anchor. Your breath becomes your teacher. You discover you don't need noise to feel alive, you just need awareness. The now is full, the mind is empty. Every present moment offers a choice. Live it or lose it. Most people lose it without even noticing. They trade what is real for what is imagined. But you have the power to decide differently. You can choose to stay here awake to what is unfolding. Presence is surrender, not to fear, but to life. When you stop fighting the moment starts working for you. Opportunities appear more naturally. Solutions arrive without force. Flow begins when resistance ends. The more you practice presence, the easier it becomes to recognize when your mind is lying to you. You catch fear before it grows. You stop panic before it spreads. You stop suffering before it multiplies. Awareness becomes your shield. Presence reveals that peace was always available beneath the noise, behind the stories, hidden under the assumptions. You just forgot to look for it. The mind distracts, but the moment restores. In presence, everything softens. To live in the moment is to give yourself permission to exist without fear. You don't have to solve everything at once. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be here, fully, gently, honestly. The moment welcomes you without judgment. Right now is enough. This moment is enough. You as you are, breathing, existing, are enough. Nothing is missing except your attention. Bring it home. Bring it to this breath. Bring it to this moment. Here is where life is happening. Living in the moment doesn't just reduce suffering, it reveals joy. You discover that life isn't something you chase, it's something you feel. It's happening around you and within you, waiting for your presence like a friend, asking you to stay a little longer. Every time you return to the present, you choose truth over illusion. You choose life over fear. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose to live instead of letting your mind live for you. And that single choice, repeated, becomes a better life. This moment is your real home. Not the memories behind you, not the fantasies ahead. This breath, this awareness, this heartbeat. The mind wanders, but the soul knows where to return. Presence is your way back into peace. The more you practice presence, the more you understand this. Reality is kinder than overthinking. The present moment holds space for growth, connection, and calm. And the only thing separating you from this peace is thought. Most of the moments you treasure in life were the ones where you were completely present. You weren't thinking about how you looked, worrying about how others saw you, or planning what to say next. You were simply living. Presence makes ordinary experiences unforgettable and turns simple seconds into lifelong memories. Without presence, even the best moments feel empty. When you live fully in the now, you take your power back from the mind. You stop letting anxiety drag you into a future that hasn't happened, and stop letting old regrets chain you to what can't be changed. You learn that real freedom isn't found in having control over everything. It's found in no longer being controlled by thoughts that don't belong to this moment. Life is speaking to you in every second, but overthinking drowns out the message. The breeze against your skin, the color of the sky, laughter in the distance, all of these are invitations to be here. When you slow down enough to sense them, you feel grounded again, you feel alive again. The world becomes softer when you stop thinking so hard. When you're lost in your mind, time slips away unnoticed. Hours vanish into worry. Days pass without meaning. Years disappear into waiting for the right moment. But when you return to the present, time expands. Seconds feel rich. Experiences deepen. You realize you weren't running out of time, you were running away from the moment. Presence transforms challenges too. Problems shrink when you face them step by step, instead of imagining every possible failure. Your mind sees obstacles as impossible mountains. Presence sees them as stones you can move one at a time. When you deal with what's real, instead of what's imagined, nothing feels too big. Living in the present is how confidence grows. When the mind predicts disaster, you stay small. But when you act in the moment, you gather evidence of your strength. You learn from what actually happens, not from the fears that never did. The more present you become, the more you trust your ability to handle anything. Life rewards those who show up, not those lost in thoughts, not those frozen by fear, but those who participate. You don't need perfect clarity to begin. You don't need every answer to take a step. You just need to arrive mentally where your body already is and allow the next move to unfold naturally. Presence helps you connect more deeply with others. You notice their tone, their eyes, their emotions. You hear them instead of waiting for your turn to speak. You feel human warmth instead of mental noise. Relationships don't require more effort, they require more attention. Love grows in presence. When you live in your mind, you judge everything yourself, others, life. When you live in the moment, you observe without harsh labels. You see reality as it is, not as fear paints it. The moment becomes a mirror of truth instead of a projection of insecurity. Judgments fade, clarity rises. The present is where healing happens. Not in thinking about healing, not in wishing to heal, but in breathing through the hurt and allowing yourself to exist without pressure. The mind tries to rush the process, but the moment teaches patience. Every breath you take consciously is a step away from pain. The more you return to the now, the less you fear what's next. You begin to trust that each moment will give you what you need when you need it. The mind wants certainty. The present gives confidence, a deeper belief that you can meet life as it arrives, instead of trying to control it. Presence is humble. It doesn't ask for attention or perfection. It asks for honesty, to feel what you feel, to be where you are, to accept what's real. You stop pretending to be okay for the future and start discovering peace in the now. Living becomes sincere again, instead of performative. When your mind stops narrating life, life becomes vivid. Music feels fuller, food tastes richer, colors appear sharper. The world stops looking distant and starts feeling intimate. This is not magic, it's attention. The more you pay attention, the more beautiful everything becomes. Overthinking is loud. The present is quiet. But inside that quiet, you rediscover parts of yourself the noise had buried: joy, curiosity, wonder, creativity. These strengths return when the storm of constant thoughts finally settles. Presence isn't emptiness. It's where your soul can breathe. Living in the moment is the highest form of gratitude, not for the life you wish you had, but for the life you are already living. Gratitude creates peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally notice how much is already enough. Fulfillment is not in having more, but in seeing more. Presence allows you to experience success with clarity. You actually feel your progress instead of rushing past it. You celebrate wins instead of minimizing them. You grow with joy instead of pressure. The moment becomes a record of your transformation, one conscious step at a time. You don't have to control every thought to control your life. You just need to stop letting every thought steal you from reality. Let the thought come. Let it go. Return to now. This is how you break the cycle of mental suffering, not through force, but through awareness. Presence gives you access to your intuition, the wisdom beneath thought. Intuition doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows you what feels right instead of what fear insists. When you are grounded in the moment, you finally hear that quiet guidance. It leads you to choices aligned with your truth. Every breath can bring you back. The inhale reminds you that you are alive. The exhale reminds you that you can let go. Breath is the simplest anchor, always accessible, always honest. When thoughts spiral, return to breathing. It's your bridge to peace. Right now is not asking you to fix your entire life only to live this second fully. If you keep this as your focus, anxiety weakens. Challenges simplify. The impossible becomes manageable. Life doesn't demand all of you at once, just the version of you that exists in this breath. When you live in the moment, you stop trying to skip to the end of the story. You become curious about the next sentence instead of terrified of the final chapter. You trust the unfolding instead of forcing the outcome. The journey becomes enjoyable instead of stressful. Presence is the antidote to regret. You stop looking back wishing you had lived differently because you are finally living intentionally now. And when the future arrives, it arrives filled with fewer what-ifs and more, "I'm glad I did." Being present doesn't erase challenges. It gives you the strength to face them without the added suffering of imagined problems. You learn to address what is in front of you instead of everything that could happen. Confidence replaces catastrophe. Presence eliminates the need for constant validation. When you live in the now, you stop measuring yourself by outside judgment. You feel enough because you are connected to who you are, not who you fear the world wants you to be. In presence, insecurity loses its foundation. Living in the moment makes you more decisive. Without endless mental debates, you trust your first instinct more often, and surprisingly, it's usually right. The mind complicates decisions, presence simplifies them. You take action faster and regret less. The moment teaches acceptance, not resignation, but peace with what is real. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop growing, it means you stop fighting reality. From acceptance comes clarity. From clarity comes strength. From strength comes transformation. When you stay present, you stop trying to control how life unfolds, and life starts unfolding in ways more beautiful than you could plan. Doors open without force. People enter without resistance. Success flows without desperation. Alignment begins when control ends. Presence reminds you that life is happening for you, not against you. What you're living now is shaping who you are becoming. Instead of resisting every challenge, you begin to trust that they are refining you. Every moment becomes meaningful. The mind tells you the moment is incomplete. The present shows you everything is already whole. When you stop trying to fix every second, you finally see how perfectly this second is holding you. You become calmer, softer, kinder, especially toward yourself. The more you practice presence, the more your priorities change. You care less about appearances and more about experiences. You stop chasing validation and start chasing meaning. You stop trying to impress others and start trying to impress your own soul. Presence is an act of self-love. You give yourself permission to exist without judgment or performance. You discover joy in simplicity. You feel your own worth without needing proof. In presence, you remember you are enough. Life is not waiting for you somewhere else. It is here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this tiny, fleeting moment that will never return. When you choose presence, you choose life, real life, not the mental version filled with fear. Your mind will wander again. That's normal. But presence is a decision you can keep making over and over. Each time you return to the moment, you take one step closer to peace, to clarity, to the life that's truly yours. You become less controlled by thought and more guided by truth. The present moment is always offering you a new beginning. Every second you can start over. Every breath is a reset. There is nothing you must wait for. Peace is already here. You just have to arrive. Chapter 6. Replace fearful thoughts with clear actions. Fearful thoughts always show up first. They are fast, loud, and dramatic. They arrive before logic, before truth, before evidence. The mind imagines danger and reacts as if it's already happening. But when you act instead of overthinking, something powerful happens. Fear begins to lose its authority. Action proves what the mind refused to believe. You are capable. Fear doesn't want you to move because movement creates change. It prefers you to stay exactly where you are comfortable but unsatisfied. It will give you 1,000 reasons to wait, but none of them are real. When you take one step, even a small one, you interrupt fear's control. You remind your brain that possibility exists beyond panic. Thinking about something for too long makes it appear bigger than it is. A simple task becomes a mountain. A short conversation becomes a crisis. Action shrinks what the mind exaggerates. When you focus on the step in front of you, instead of the imaginary disaster ahead. You take your power back from fear. The mind becomes a follower instead of a dictator. Fear tries to convince you that you must be confident before you act. But confidence doesn't come first. Courage does. Every bold person you admire felt uncertain before they moved. The difference is, they moved anyway. Confidence is simply the reward for taking action while afraid. Do the thing first, the belief will come after. The more you avoid something, the scarier it becomes. Avoidance feeds fear like fuel feeds fire. But the moment you approach what you fear, its power weakens. You learn that the threat was not real, only your thoughts were. Action becomes the antidote to anxiety. Movement becomes the cure for mental paralysis. You cannot think your way into clarity, you must act your way into it. Answers appear when you engage with life, not when you sit inside your head analyzing possibilities. The next step becomes obvious once you take the first. You don't need to see the entire path. You only need to prove to yourself that you are willing to walk. Action turns doubt into direction. Instead of wondering, "Can I?" you discover, "I can." Every small win becomes a piece of evidence that your fear was lying. Self-trust grows not from sitting with your worries, but from defeating them through movement. Your brain learns a new story. I don't need to be ready, I just need to begin. Fear lives in the future, action lives in the present. The moment you focus on what you can do now, fear loses access to your mind. You can't worry and work. At the same time, your energy can only go in one direction. Choose the direction that builds you instead of breaking you. You do not need to feel brave to act bravely. Courage is simply doing the next step, even when your heart is racing. It's making the call, starting the workout, writing the sentence, showing up. Fear wants you silent. Action teaches your voice to rise. Every move you make is a rebellion against the mind that told you to freeze. Fear thrives in imagination but dies in reality. When you take action, you discover that most fears have no foundation. They collapse under the weight of truth. You realize nothing was chasing you. The danger was never outside. It was inside your thinking. Action exposes the mind's exaggerations. Waiting makes fear heavier. Doing makes it lighter. Once you break the first barrier, everything gets easier. Momentum replaces hesitation. Progress replaces panic. You don't have to conquer the entire challenge at once. Just remove fear's first excuse. The rest begins to unfold naturally. Your brain learns from your behavior. If you always react with avoidance, it believes the fear is valid. But if you act despite fear, your brain rewires. It stops sounding alarms for situations that are safe. You train your nervous system to remain calm. Courage becomes a habit, not a rare moment. Taking action interrupts negativity. The mind cannot spiral when the body is in motion. Focus shifts from imagined outcomes to real experience. You stop rehearsing failure and start practicing success. Even if the first step isn't perfect, it's progress, and progress is always better than paralysis. You don't need motivation to act, you need discipline. Motivation comes from emotion, discipline comes from decision. Emotion is temporary, decisions build identity. When you act because it is who you want to be, not because you feel like it, fear loses its negotiation power. You command your mind instead of begging it for permission. Clear action creates internal strength. You learn that fear does not control you, it simply challenges you. Every time you push through fear, you become more unshakable. You start to trust yourself in situations that once terrified you. Strength isn't gained through comfort, it's built through resistance. When you take action, you shift your attention from the worst-case scenario to the real experience. Most of the time, you discover the situation is manageable, sometimes even enjoyable. Fear painted a monster. Action revealed a challenge, one you were always capable of handling. You can think yourself into deeper fear. or you can move yourself into deeper confidence. The first option keeps you stuck. The second transforms you. The power is always in the step, never in the thought. Thoughts can inspire movement, but movement creates transformation. Action doesn't always feel good while you're doing it, but it always feels better than regret. Fear promises safety, but delivers stagnation. Action may feel uncomfortable, but delivers growth. The discomfort of movement is temporary. The pain of remaining the same lasts forever. Your mind tries to predict everything so you never get hurt. But life isn't something you calculate, it's something you live. You discover your strengths by using them, not by thinking about them. The moment you stop trying to predict every outcome, you open yourself to opportunities fear would have blocked. Sometimes the most powerful action is the smallest one. Getting out of bed when you want to hide, sending the message you've been avoiding, starting the task instead of thinking about it. Each small choice is a vote for the person you want to become. Those votes eventually form a new identity, one that fear cannot control. When fear tells you stories, respond with movement. Don't argue with the thought, show it proof. Fear says you can't. Try anyway. Fear says something bad will happen. See for yourself. Action ends the debate. The mind keeps trying to win. Reality becomes the judge, not imagination. Your future self is watching every decision you make today. Every action brings you closer to the life you want or keeps you stuck in the one you hate. Fear will keep trying to hold you here. Action will keep trying to take you forward. Which voice you obey determines your destiny. Action gives you data, real evidence to guide your next move. Overthinking gives you nothing, just recycled doubts. When you step into the unknown, you don't just gain progress, you gain truth. Truth gives clarity, and clarity removes fear's power over you. If you let fear lead, your world becomes smaller. You say no to experiences that could shape you. You avoid opportunities that could elevate you. You create a life that is safe, but suffocating. When you let action lead, your world expands. You discover potential you didn't know existed. You don't rise by feeling comfortable. You rise by choosing what discomfort builds. Action strengthens your character, sharpens your identity, and deepens your courage. Fear wants you to survive. Action wants you to evolve. You decide which one wins every single day. When you take action, you stop fearing effort and start embracing progress. You realize that effort is not punishment, it is transformation. Fear tries to keep you weak. Action trains you strong. You learn that every step forward changes you, even if the step is small. Uncertainty will always exist. Fear will always show up. But action turns uncertainty into adventure and fear into fuel. You start to see challenges as opportunities to grow instead of reasons to hide. You become familiar with the unknown and eventually comfortable inside it. You cannot escape fear by trying to think your way out of it. You escape fear by walking through it. Action is proof that fear has limitations. It might shout, but it cannot stop your body from moving unless you obey it. Every step sends fear a message. You are no longer in charge. When you act without waiting for fear to disappear, you discover freedom. Freedom from hesitation, freedom from doubt, freedom from mental prisons. Clarity comes from motion. Strength comes from repetition. Life responds to movement, not to worry. Action brings you into alignment with reality. The mind creates problems, the present moment reveals solutions. Most of what you fear is fiction. Most of what you avoid is harmless. Most of what you want is waiting on the other side of motion. The first step doesn't solve everything, but it changes everything. It interrupts the cycle of fear. It creates energy. It builds belief. Progress breathes confidence into your bones and cracks open the possibilities your mind once shut down. The door to freedom is movement. Action doesn't remove Fear, it teaches you that you don't have to listen to it. Fear becomes background noise instead of the narrator of your story. You keep going anyway. You build a future anyway. You rise anyway. Fear stops being a master and becomes a reminder that you are doing something brave. Don't wait for fear to leave. It won't. Move while fear is still whispering. Move while doubt still lingers. Move while the mind is still uncertain. Because every time you choose movement, you choose growth. And growth is always worth it. Clear action is how you disconnect from fear's illusion. Every step you take creates distance between who you were and who you are becoming. You rewrite your brain with every decision aligned with courage. The identity built through action cannot be threatened by thought. Replace fearful thoughts with a single move toward your goal. Do it again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Build a mind that respects action more than fear. Build a life that reflects movement instead of hesitation. Build yourself by doing. Your life changes when your priorities change. Stop feeding fear and start feeding progress. Don't ask, what if it goes wrong? Ask, what if this is the moment everything changes? Because the moment you act, everything does. Fear will always try to make you wait for a better time, but action teaches you that the best time is always the moment you choose to begin. Waiting feels safe, but it's the kind of safety that kills potential slowly. Every delayed step trains your brain to postpone dreams. Every decisive move trains your brain to chase them. You become what you repeatedly choose. Courage doesn't arrive before you move, it arrives because you moved. It appears in motion, not stillness. The first step might feel shaky, but the second step feels stronger. And the third step becomes proof you were capable all along. Eventually, fear becomes quiet not because it disappeared, but because you stopped listening. Your thoughts may warn you of risks, but your actions teach you that most risks are survivable. You learn by doing, you grow by trying, you evolve by engaging with the world instead of hiding from it. Even failure becomes information guidance that shows you where to adjust instead of where to quit. The mind likes to create stories about everything that could go wrong, but stories are not experiences. When you act, you trade fiction for reality. You discover the truth of what you are capable of, instead of accepting the lies fear told you. Reality is almost always kinder than the mind's imagination. Action doesn't guarantee success, but inaction guarantees stagnation. You will never build confidence by standing still. You will never discover your strength by staying comfortable. The life you want is built one uncomfortable decision at a time. Growth never asks permission from fear. Fear is a storyteller, but your actions are the author. Every movement rewrites your future. Every step places a crack in the wall that once trapped you. Eventually, the structure collapses, not all at once, but piece by piece. Freedom is found in persistence, not perfection. When fear says, "You can't," action responds, "Watch me." You don't overcome fear by arguing with it. You overcome fear by proving it wrong. Evidence destroys excuses. Action builds the kind of confidence that thinking never could. You become powerful through behavior, not belief alone. You don't need to know the whole path, just the direction. A small step taken now is worth more than a huge plan you'll never execute. Stop making the journey look harder than it is. Most of the distance between you and success is made of hesitation. Remove hesitation and the road becomes shorter. Nothing changes until you do. You can collect all the motivation in the world, but if you don't convert it into behavior, nothing happens. The world does not respond to your thoughts. It responds to your actions. Effort is the real language of progress. Action gives the mind a job to do other than fear. When you are busy doing the work, your mind cannot invent disaster. Focus replaces panic. Attention replaces anxiety. A task absorbs energy that would have fed worry. In this way, action becomes a shield against overthinking. Fear will always show you the final stage, the full challenge to overwhelm you. Action breaks it into pieces so you can handle it. When you divide a mountain into steps, you realize you are strong enough to climb. What once looked impossible becomes inevitable through discipline. You are not weak for feeling scared, you are human. But you become unstoppable when you move despite the fear. Bravery isn't about feeling fearless. It's about being willing to walk with fear at your side and not let it lead. You take the hand of courage instead. Every action you take changes your identity a little. Every time you do the thing fear told you to avoid, you reshape who you are. You begin to see yourself as capable, determined, resilient. You turn self-doubt into self-respect, not by thinking differently, but by acting differently. Action clears the fog that fear creates. When you experience what you have been avoiding, the mystery disappears, and so does the terror. Your brain realizes the monster at the door was only a shadow. Fear hates. When you shine light on it, truth exposes its weakness. You don't need a perfect plan to win. You just need consistency. Chaos becomes clarity once you start walking. The mind wants certainty, but action creates certainty. You build understanding through experience, not through fear's predictions. Fear's only real power is delay. It cannot physically stop you. It cannot remove your strength. It can only make you wait, and waiting becomes a habit that steals your life quietly. Action breaks the habit. Discipline becomes your rebellion. Movement becomes your victory. Every time you act, you choose growth over fear. You choose progress over regret. You choose courage over comfort. These choices stack up until one day you look back and realize you built a life fear never wanted you to have. You won one brave moment at a time. Action returns you to the present, where life actually happens. Fear drags you into the future, where life does not exist yet. When you move, you focus on what you can control. That power alone is enough to silence fear's loudest arguments. Reality replaces worry. You will never eliminate fear completely, and you don't have to. You only have to ensure fear is not driving your life. Let it sit in the back seat, not behind the wheel. Let your values lead. Let your goals steer. Let your actions decide where you go next. Sometimes the hardest part is simply starting. But once you start, momentum begins to build. Momentum is stronger than motivation. It carries you on the days when excitement disappears. It reminds you that you don't need to feel like it. You just need to keep going. Action turns anxiety into ability. You face the situations that once scared you and realize you are growing stronger in the process. You stop living like you're fragile. You discover you are durable. You learn that courage is not rare, it is trained. Every action becomes a seed. Plant enough seeds and a new life begins to grow. Fear wants to keep the soil empty. Action cultivates a future. Little by little, step by step, the garden changes, and so do you. Progress is quiet, but transformation is undeniable. You don't owe fear your loyalty. You don't owe your past self your future. You owe yourself the chance to become who you could be, not who you are afraid to be. Action is how you honor your potential. Fear is how you abandon it. Action turns "I hope" into "I am working on it." It turns "I want" into "I'm building it." It turns "someday" into "today." You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for rescue, you climb. And in climbing, you learn the mountain was never taller than your will. Fear says, "What if it doesn't work?" Action says, "What if it does?" Fear says, "You might lose." Action says, "I might win." You decide whose voice becomes your truth. Every step is a declaration. I choose possibility over panic. I choose life over limitation. When fear pushes you to think more, push back by doing more. You cannot think your way into a better life. You must create one. You must build the version of you who takes action even when doubt screams. You are not controlled by emotion. You are guided by direction. There will be days when fear feels stronger. That's okay. You don't have to win every battle to win the war. You just need to show up again. Show up messy. Show up unsure. Show up afraid. Just show up. The repetition of showing up rewires destiny. Your dreams are waiting for you, not for your thoughts. They are waiting for your footsteps, your effort, your sweat, your movement. Action is the bridge between what you imagine and what you live. Don't just plan the life you want. Practice it. You already survived so much. Don't let imaginary fears defeat the real strength you've earned. You are qualified to move forward, not because you're fearless, but because you have felt fear and continued anyway. That is what true strength looks like in action. Let your actions define you more than your worries do. Let your choices reflect your goals instead of your anxieties. Life responds to what you do, not what you fear. Show life you're ready. Show fear that it cannot stop you. Move and keep moving. If you give fear control today, it will ask for more tomorrow. But if you choose courage today, courage multiplies. It grows inside you like a muscle. Every action strengthens your identity. Before you know it, you become someone who acts naturally instead of hesitating. Your mind can imagine the worst, but your actions can create the best. You don't have to believe in yourself completely to begin. You only need to believe in the next step. Take it, and then take the one after. That is how confidence is built, step by step, action by action. Fear is loud in your mind, but silent in reality. Action proves this again and again. It reveals that the monsters were illusions, the danger exaggerated, the consequences survivable. When you face life directly, fear fades into the background. It loses the spotlight. You weren't born to freeze, you were born to evolve. Evolution requires movement, movement requires courage, and courage requires the willingness to act before fear approves. You will never regret the steps you took, only the ones you allowed fear to steal. This moment right now is the invitation. Fear won't send you one. Opportunity will. Don't wait for bravery. Don't wait for comfort. Don't wait for perfect clarity. You only need one thing, a step. Take it before fear talks you out of everything you could be. Your true life begins the moment you stop waiting for the mind to feel safe and start allowing yourself to grow. Fearful thoughts will always exist, but they lose power when your actions become louder. Let your steps speak for you. Let your life show what fear tried to hide. Chapter 7. Train your brain to protect you, not scare you. Your brain's #1 job is survival, not happiness. So when it senses uncertainty, it rushes to assume danger. It tries to scare you away from anything unfamiliar, even if that unfamiliar thing is your future success. To train your brain to protect you instead of limiting you, you must teach it that growth is not a threat, it's a necessity. You must rewire its reactions through conscious practice. Your brain learns from what you repeatedly do. If you constantly avoid challenges, it interprets challenges as danger. But if you face them, even slowly, your brain learns that discomfort isn't death, it's development. It begins to associate risk with reward instead of fear. You become more resilient because your brain stops panicking every time you step toward change. Fear exists because your brain expects the worst. But what if you trained it to expect the best? When you visualize success, take risks intentionally, and embrace uncertainty, you are programming your brain to stop defaulting to disaster. You become more curious than afraid. Optimism is a skill, and skills are trained, not gifted. Every anxious thought is your brain trying to warn you, but warnings become lies when repeated too often. You must challenge the alarm system. Ask yourself, is this fear based on evidence, or is it just old programming? Most fear is learned, not real. and anything learned can be unlearned. Your brain becomes more accurate when you stop believing every alert it sends you. Small victories are powerful because they act as proof. When you push yourself and survive, your brain adjusts. When you step out of your comfort zone and nothing terrible happens, your brain updates its belief. Maybe this is safe. Progress isn't about big milestones, it's about teaching your brain new truths one success at a time. Self-talk is how you train your brain from the inside. If you call yourself weak, your brain becomes convinced. If you tell yourself you can handle anything, your brain begins preparing for strength instead of collapse. The language you use creates the mindset you live with. Your thoughts become the blueprint for your responses. Your brain mirrors what you focus on. If you obsess over fear, fear grows. If you focus on possibilities, confidence expands. Attention is energy. What you feed grows stronger. Protect your focus like it's your future, because it is. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Your mind reacts to what you imagine as if it were happening. That means worrying becomes rehearsal for failure, and empowering yourself becomes rehearsal for success. You can terrify your brain with thoughts, or you can train it with thoughts. The pictures you create mentally shape the reality you build physically. Stress is not always the enemy. It can be fuel. Your brain releases energy when it senses challenge. If you panic, that energy turns into anxiety. But if you breathe and act, that energy becomes power. You can't eliminate stress, but you can redirect it. Stress becomes strength when you teach your brain to use it instead of fear it. Your brain needs challenges to stay sharp. If everything is easy, it becomes weak. Just like muscles, the mind grows through strain. When you take on difficult tasks, you are literally sculpting a stronger brain. You are training your mind to handle life without breaking every time something goes wrong. Your brain defaults to habits, even if those habits hurt you. To break fear-based patterns, you must replace them, not fight them. Introduce behaviors that align with who you want to become. Over time, the brain will choose the new path automatically. Habit is the brain's loyalty. Teach it to be loyal to growth. When fear arises, your brain is asking for direction. You can either let fear lead you backward, or you can guide your brain forward. When you tell yourself, "I'm safe," your nervous system calms. When you tell yourself, "I can do this," your mind activates solutions. Your words become instruction. Give your brain the right commands. Your brain remembers emotional moments. So use emotion to anchor courage. Celebrate progress. Acknowledge effort. Feel proud of every step. When courage feels good, the brain repeats it. Reward your bravery. Don't ignore it. Every bit of celebration creates a neural path that says, "This is who I am now." The world inside your head creates the world you see outside. If your thoughts are filled with threat, the world will feel hostile. If your thoughts are filled with possibility, life opens up. Changing your mindset doesn't change the world, it changes your access to it. Perspective decides opportunity. Training your brain means embracing the unknown instead of avoiding it. Growth always requires uncertainty. Instead of asking, "What if it goes wrong?" ask, "What if this is where everything changes?" Your brain will follow the question you prioritize. Allow curiosity to lead where fear once stood. Repetition builds belief. If you tell yourself something once, your brain forgets. If you tell yourself something daily, it becomes identity. Don't wait for confidence, construct it. Don't wait for belief, build it. Greatness is not found. It is programmed into your mind with relentless consistency. Your brain does not control you. It responds to you. When you pause before reacting, when you observe thoughts instead of obeying them, you reclaim authority. You are the leader of your mind, not its victim. Thoughts can talk, but actions decide the truth. Choose behaviors that make fear irrelevant. You cannot train your brain in comfort. Comfort sustains old fears. Discomfort destroys them. When you intentionally expose yourself to what scares you, your brain learns how powerful you are. With each step, your fear shrinks. With each challenge, your identity expands. Courage is a classroom enrolled daily. Your brain likes to assume patterns. If something bad happened once, it expects it always will. But that assumption is outdated. You must remind your brain that the past doesn't dictate the future. Each moment is new. Each decision is new. History informs you, it does not imprison you. When you visualize success, your brain fires the same neural pathways that activate during real achievement. You can mentally rehearse greatness until your brain begins operating as if that success is already yours. This is how champions are made. They train their mind before they train their reality. Your brain cannot hold fear and gratitude at the same time. Gratitude calms the nervous system and silences the survival alarms. When you acknowledge what is working, you give your brain reasons to trust life. Peace grows when appreciation grows. Gratitude is therapy built into thought. Every time you stay calm in a stressful moment, you teach your brain that catastrophe isn't coming. Every time you take action while uncertain, you prove that fear is an unreliable guide. Every time you breathe before reacting, you turn instinct into intelligence. These choices form a new mind, one that protects your future, not your fear. Your inner critic is not the truth, it's a protector that learned the wrong strategy. It thinks self-attack prevents failure, but you can retrain your brain to support you instead. Replace self-judgment with self-coaching. Replace overthinking with problem-solving. Replace panic with planning. The protector becomes a partner. Your brain remembers the things you repeat the most. If you repeat worry, fear becomes familiar. If you repeat action, confidence becomes comfortable. You don't need a new brain, just new patterns. Teach it to expect bravery. Teach it to expect resilience. Teach it to expect success. Awareness is the first weapon against fear. When you notice a thought, I can't, I'll fail, this is scary, label it as a thought, not the truth. Then move anyway. Action proves what awareness reveals. Thoughts are suggestions, not orders. You choose what becomes real. Confidence grows every time you show your brain that fear is wrong about you. Fear says you'll break, action says you'll rise. Fear says you're weak. Experience says you're capable. Fear says stop. Courage says continue. Every contradiction becomes evidence that you are stronger than your anxiety. Your brain evolves every time you do something you were once afraid of. Progress might feel small in the moment, but internally, neurons are reshaping, patterns are reprogramming, beliefs are rewriting. Your brain is becoming the mind of a person who cannot be intimidated by fear anymore. You are not training your brain for a perfect life. You are training it for a powerful life. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to diminish its influence. Fear becomes background noise you can ignore while you continue building the life you want. Strength means acting while the echoes of fear fade behind you. Your mind needs evidence that life is worth trusting. Give it experiences that prove joy is possible, peace is possible, success is possible. The more good moments you create, the more your brain expects goodness. Over time, fear loses the case, reality wins the argument.